Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. So glad to have you guys on board today. Before we get started, I want to invite you to go over and follow us, like us over on YouTube. You're listening, so please leave us a review over here. Let us know what you think of the program. And if you get a chance, go over and take the Promote, Profit, Publish quiz at promoteprofitpublishquiz.com and find out where your skill set is and if you're ready to actually publish, if your audience is in place. So today's guest is Dov Baron, and you'll love his accent. He sort of has this great little accent. But Dov Baron is the dragonist, guiding us on how to recognize and nurture our dragons, that's top talent, hidden in our organizations. A dragon leader is not a position. It's someone who's always pushing to improve and wants those they serve to reach their full potential. I can't read today. Sorry about that, folks. Dov's humor and no BS style is contagious. And I got to tell you, we talked a couple months ago. He really is no BS. As a master storyteller, he's considered to be the leading authority on actualized leadership. Actualized leadership means getting the result you set out to achieve in the most meaningful manner possible. Working with diverse leaders and executive teams, Dov filters common bonds to create fiercely loyal cultures. You can't achieve loyalty without meaning, and talent only stays when they feel they are part of something larger than themselves. Besides being the best-selling author of One Red Thread and Fiercely Loyal, How High-Performing Companies Develop and Retain Top Talent, Dov has been named one of Inc. magazine's top 100 leadership speakers to hire and is one of the top 30 global leadership gurus. How does it feel to be a guru? I don't know. That sounds kind of...
I don't like it, but it's not a title I would give myself, that's for sure.
That's funny. He's spoken to the United Nations, World Management Forum in Iran, and also the New York National Speakers Association and the Servant Leadership Institute. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It's an honor and a pleasure. I'm excited to serve.
Well, I'm excited to have you. We don't have accented people on often, and that accent is adorable. It's from?
It's Labradoodle. So it's a bit of everything. I was born in the UK, but I've been gone for more than 40 years. I was in France and Italy. Then I lived in East Coast Canada for a year. Then I was in Asia and Indonesia, and then I lived in Australia for many years before moving to the West Coast. So hence the Labradoodle accent. But I can do a whole lot of different accents, depending what you'd prefer. If you like an Irish one, I can do an Irish one. If you like Scottish, I can do Scottish. If you prefer that, it's really up to you. Any way you like it.
Well, you guys can tell this is going to be entertaining.
I can also do many ones that are considered inappropriate, but those are for the off record, I think.
Oh, okay. I was going to say we do a lot of inappropriate things on this show. No, actually,
Splendid.
We try not to. But so, tell us a little bit about the Dragonist. What is that all about?
As you know, the work I've been doing for the last 35 years has been helping leaders to become their very best. And that is a very general, broad, umbrella sort of statement that doesn't tell anybody anything. So when we were really looking at this years ago about what is it that I do, and one of the things that I've seen as a really common crisis that I see is burnout. And you may have noticed that I've said often that we live in a culture where the religion is hustle, and the high priest of hustle is Gary Vaynerchuk. And as much as I love Gary, by the way, I do love him. I think he's great. But not everybody's Gary, and a lot of people are busy trying to be Gary, and they end up burned out. Right. And so that they're firing ahead with this dream and idea, a headspace of becoming that big. And they end up burned out. And at the same time, the automatic then becomes, well, do entrepreneurs become burned out? And the answer is no, because if you look at Elon Musk, if you look at Oprah Winfrey, if you look at Dwayne Johnson, if you look at those kinds of people, they all talk about work and love work and work harder and longer than most other people. So what do they have that other people don't have? If they're not burning out and they're still entrepreneurial and other entrepreneurs are burning out, what's the difference? And the difference is dragon fire. Dragon fire cannot be put out. It doesn't get burned out because it is not a concept in the head. It is your heart and soul that's on fire to serve at a greater level. Mm-hmm. That's what being in touch with your dragon fire does. And that's what I'm masterful at finding in people is I find out what their real true dragon fire is, which is not their passion. It's not their passion at all. It's not their joy. It's their dragon fire. So people say, is it your passion? Not at all.
So explain that. What's the difference between the two?
Great question. So you can probably remember being 16. I can vaguely remember it.
Me too.
I mean, it's 5-6 years ago now. But I can remember what I was passionate about when I was 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. And if that was supposed to be my life's path, then I'd be the manager of Victoria's Secret. Clearly, that was not my path. And the thing with passion is that passion is just that. It is transitory. So passion is transitory. Many of the things that we were passionate about when we were in our teens or even in our 20s or in our 30s, they change, they evolve. So passion is a vehicle. This is what I want everybody to understand. Passion is a vehicle. If you're an entrepreneur, you might be thinking, oh my God, I'm so flaky because I'm always changing things. No, your vehicle is out of fuel. That's it, it's done. Your vehicle transports your dragon fire. So the passion is transitory. It's the way to move from a place to serve the dragon fire. And that is much deeper and it doesn't change. It evolves, it deepens, but it doesn't become something else.
That is so interesting. So when you see people who kind of get stuck, they're not in it.
No, they're not in it. They've lost touch with their dragon fire. And the dragon fire is there in all of us. And unfortunately, many companies and organizations and leaders will stifle the dragon fire and try and get the person to do what they want them to do. And they'll do dictatorial, authoritarian leadership. Now, remember that we as human beings have a desire, and our desire is to fit in. We want to belong. We're tribal. That's what human beings want. My pushback on that is, please don't try and fit in. I mean, I want you to think about, you probably had an experience in your life where you have a drawer or a closet that is packed to the, it's a nice way of saying that. Packed to the hilt. Yeah. I was going to say that's the British way. So you probably had a drawer or a closet like that. And in order to fit something in, you have to push things out of the way and squish things up and get it to fit in there. You don't want to fit in anywhere because we're not looking to make you smaller. We're not looking to contort you to fit in. What you want is a place to belong. And the reason that I love dragons is because dragons are big. They're not playing small. They don't walk into a room and a little puff of smoke goes off. They walk in and it's, there's a dramatic entrance to that, not from a grandiosity, but from a place of presence. And so you don't want to fit in. You want to belong. You want to wings and breathe your fire into a situation. And that is very different. And many companies and organizations are trying to get people to conform and fit in. And they don't realize that they've got dragons in their organization. And that actually, if they make space for them, they would actually completely evolve their business. They would grow it and develop it for them. They want to do that.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people leave corporate America because of that. They just they can't do it anymore. I know I was one of those. I wanted to have my own business. So when you're inside of a company, do you find that it's the older management that is the hardest do you want to comment on that? Or is that kind of, no. Is it the older managers who are having a hard time changing and really embracing this?
So let's talk about this from a place of psychology, because I think that's what's really important here to understand is that the most important thing to the ego mind, which we all have, everybody gets one, is to survive. And the way that we survive is we find out what works. Now, let me just get that clear. To survive, you have to find out what works in order to survive. Now, let me just say, as you're listening to this, whether you are 15 or whether you are 75, you've worked out how to survive. How do I know? Because you've made it this far, whatever this far is. And as a result, you've likely built some habits based on your survival. Those habits might suck, might be really unhealthy and dysfunctional and destructive, but they keep you alive and keep you surviving. And therefore, they keep you wanting to be right about the thing that's helped you survive, even if it's crap, even if it's dysfunctional. So that's why it's difficult to change. It's not that it's about age or any of those things. It's how embedded we are in being right. The more we can give away the desire to be right and shift that to being true for me, that's when you can constantly evolve. You can keep deepening and growing and transforming yourself into a deeper sense of yourself. So yes, I have definitely encountered what you talked about with older leaders struggling with the change, of course, but I've also had that with younger leaders too. Because they've been egoic and been, well, I know, because, you don't know because you're old, right? Or, and I the other way, you don't know because you're young. Well, you neither of you know, because the truth is, are you open to growing? Because the three most damaging words you'll ever use, are you ready for this? If you're listening, write this down. The three most damaging words you'll ever use, the three words that will inhibit your growth, will inhibit your development, and inhibit your business are, I know that. Immediately you say those three words, you've shut your mind down, you're no longer available to learn, you're no longer available to grow, and you have put a block on everything that could make you grow. So even if you go, well, they're saying this, but I really do know this, Dov. No, you don't. And they go, well, I do. And my question is, well, are you living it? And they go, yeah, I think so. All right, great. Are you living it 100%? No. Would you like to? Yes. Then shut up and listen.
That is such a great point. I remember a mentor coming in, a culture changer, into a workplace that I was at. And he said to us, congratulations, you survived. The good news is you survived your childhood. The bad news is you survived your childhood.
Exactly.
And went on and explained pretty much what you just did, those habits, those place where our trigger points are. So I think that happens a lot when we're in those conforming situations with those, and everybody's inflexible too. So how do you get people out of that mode when you go into a culture?
So there's a couple of things we can do around that. And the first thing is when we look at, I remember I said that your dragon fire is not your passion, it's not your joy. Your dragon fire is actually found in your pain. And we don't want to look there. But as Carl Jung said, and Joseph Campbell said, that is the place you need to look. Campbell said, the treasure you seek is hidden in the cave you're afraid to enter. It's that darkness that we step into. It's there metaphorically in every single story that matters. Think about Star Wars, that Luke is being trained by Yoda, and he has to go into the dark cave. And he says, what will I find in there? And Yoda says, you will see. And he says, will I find Vader in there? And he says, you will see. And when he goes into the cave, he's terrified. And he meets Vader. And when he pulls Vader's helmet off, he sees it's actually himself. He has to look at his own darkness. So this is the thing that we have to do. We have to look at where we're stuck. Where is the pain? Your dragon fire comes from your pain. And why, people say, well, why does it have to come from there? Because we are amazing humans. Humans are amazing. We want to serve. We want to make a difference. But what's in our way is this desire to survive and keep things the same way they are. So it's a push-pull that's going on inside of us. But one of the things that, years ago, they used to say AA and in 12-step programs, and you got to do it for yourself. And then they realized that doesn't work, because people were shooting needles into their arms and drinking themselves into oblivion for themselves, right? But they stop for someone else because they love their children or they love their wife or they're destroying their family. And they go, I just can't do this to them anymore. So what actually gets us to move and face the pain is the desire to make sure somebody else doesn't go through that pain. That's why when people join those programs, they go out and they recruit other people. They say, I don't want you to suffer this way I suffered. Let me help you do that. So this is the thing we have to learn to do, is we have to turn into the pain and say, who else can I help come out of similar pain? That's where my dragon fire is. I'll give you an example. So there's a person who's become a friend of mine who is probably in the top 5 branding people in the world. I mean, he is massive, works with huge organizations for fees that are beyond most of us, right? I mean, just insane. And we're working together, and I interviewed him on one of my shows, and like I said, we've become friends. And he's like, you know, I really, and he says in the interview, I really resist this idea that my dragon fire is in my pain. And I said, yeah, I understand. I get that. You're wrong, but I get it. And I'm laughing with him, right? And he's like, okay, well, how? And I said, what do you do for a living? He goes, well, branding. And I go, okay, yeah, but what's the main message of your branding? And he says, oh, that's simple. I make people stand out in a world where they're invisible. And I said, oh, okay, cool. I said, and so let him sort of go off on a tangent. And then I sort of looped him back and said, well, you know, tell me a little bit about your childhood. So he says, well, you know, I was a brown kid in a mixed race family. I didn't really fit in with black people. I didn't really fit in with white people. I said, what, you mean you felt invisible? And he goes, yeah. And I said, oh, what do you do for a living again? And he went, damn, you're right. And that's it, right? So it finds its way to come to the surface. And once you can tap into that and hone that, that's your superpower. That is your superpower. So tapping into that, bringing that forward it's so magnificent. It brings such joy to you every single day, just watching people step in and go, oh my God. So he calls me, we talk all the time, and he goes, oh my God, it was so great. This person was completely unknown and I've helped them with this. And, and then he does a little bit of work on the side that he helps people outside of the big corporations. And he goes, this artist who was completely unknown has just got picked up for this gallery and they're doing all this. And he's so excited because somebody who was an invisible artist has suddenly become right at the forefront. He's fulfilling his dragon fire.
That is a cool story. So what are some of the problems you typically see inside of these big companies?
Well, there's all kinds of them. So the first thing I will often ask is, have you read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why? And they'll say, yes. And I go, what's the first word of that title? And they go, I don't know. Let me think. Okay, start. Yes, good. That's what we want to do. We want to understand this is the start. It's great stuff. I love Simon's work. I'm a fan. But it's a start. What's underneath that? And they go, well, isn't it all about your why, your purpose? And I go, no, it's about the why of your why. And they go, well, what's that? That's your dragon fire. Oh, okay. So I said, well, tell me your purpose. They tell me that's not your purpose. That's most often when people say, this is my purpose, it's not. It's a mission statement with a lick of paint or a bit of polish and made to look a bit better, but it's not, it's just a mission statement. It's not really, because when you're in dragon fire, that has an emotional connection to you. A mission statement is like, oh yeah, that's catchy. That's good. I like it. It's got some marketing ring to it. Dragonfire doesn't. Dragonfire's like, this is what it is. This is what sets me on fire every morning to drag me out of bed, whether it's COVID-19 or whether it's 1919 or whether it's 2019 or 3019. It doesn't matter whether the world's on fire. I got to get out of bed every day because this is why. So that's the number one problem. Therefore, if you don't have a company that's built on Dragonfire, then I say, well, do you have your values, core values? And, most established companies do. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, these. And then I'll say, okay. And oftentimes those are not the values, but I'll say, okay, those are the values. Great. Now tell me, what does it mean? Because you got a value like integrity. What does that mean? We're integral. We're transparent. What does that mean? These are nothing more than words that are thrown around because they're in vogue, and they won't be out of vogue in 5 years, and nobody gives a crap. And so you've got this set of values that nobody actually understands. So your values are actually your maxims, which is deeper than your values. Your maxims have to be built on the dragonfire of your organization. And from there, you build a culture where people are fiercely loyal to the dragonfire, to the maxims that support it, and the culture is built on that. So one of the challenges is they don't have people who are loyal because people only follow what's meaningful. They will only stay with what's meaningful. There's a point where you go, okay, I've got enough money and it doesn't really matter. It's not really about the salary anymore. I want to get up and go to work in something that makes a difference. That's Dragonfire. So it's Dragonfire, it's values / maxims, and then it's culture that create loyalty. Those are what we deal with.
That's amazing. So how do you deal with startups? Do you work with them a lot where you come in and from day one, this is what we are?
Startups are, they have a different set of challenges. They're easier because they've usually not done the work. And so there's not much to undo. Mm. The downside of them is they're so hungry to make a dollar that they're obviously not paying attention oftentimes until it's too late. So we got to work with a wonderful, wonderful health technology company who were in early stages. They'd gotten their first 20 million. And so they were early stage. I had been privately working one-on-one, which is another part of my business that I work with high-level leaders. I'd been privately working with the CEO, and he brought me in to work with the company when they were at that first stage. As a result, there was a lot of resistance because, listen, I was actually meeting with the chief health officer this morning, actually. And he said, and he's now my biggest advocate. But when he started, he's like, I don't have time for this new age California woo-woo crap. That's his exact words, right? And now he's always telling everybody, you got to go talk to Dov. And he says, I've got meetings with the FDA. I'm at meetings in Russia, meetings in China. He's all over the world all the time. And so there's that, feeling of anxious and got to get moving. And he said, I don't have 2 days to sit around and do this. And at the end of actually the first half day is like, oh my God, this is powerful. I got this, and it's transformed their business. And as a result, within 2.5 months of us finishing that first stage, that was only first stage, during that first stage, they were able to raise 100 million. So that's very cool. So what happens when you go in? Because I hear this a lot from people that, a company will bring someone like you in and then it turns out the guy at the top doesn't want to change. What do you do in those situations? Because it's always a top, you can't just tell your worker bees, oh, you have to change, but I'm not going to. No, see, and that's central to the work that we do. See, we pick our clients. Mm-hmm. So we're different than a lot of companies in that you can't just send us a check and say, come on in. We go, okay, let's do an interview and we'll see whether we can work with you. Mm-hmm. It's not the other way around. We're going to interview you. And they go, you're going to interview me and I'm going to pay you a check? Yes. Why? Because I actually know what integrity means. And integrity means it has to be aligned with my Dragonfire to serve you. And so as a result, that's one of the reasons that I personally work with about 5 clients a year, new clients a year, privately, who are my one-to-one clients. Mm-hmm. And my one-to-one clients are entertainers, athletes, CEOs, financiers, those kinds of people. And they end up usually bringing us in to work with their company. So we don't work at the managerial level. We don't do that. We work at the executive level, and we will say we worked with a company that was a building development company, and I said 2/3 of the way through, I said, if this doesn't change by the next meeting, we're out. And he said, what do you mean? I cannot do this with you in constant resistance, right? Because you don't want to change, and that's okay. You don't have to change, but I can't work with you if you don't want to change. You brought me in because you want this. You were very enthusiastic about it, but it's not for everybody else. It's for you, you personally. So we're working with each individual in that executive team to build this So there's a personal Dragonfire that each individual has. And then there's a collective Dragonfire that the company has that's made out of all of the executives. And then they're all buy in, and they have to then do the same thing with each member of their team. Right. So it's like, So nobody's going, you worker bees have to do this. It's like, no, here's what we did with Dove. Here's what happened. And here's why we want you to do it. So we want to walk you through this exercise and have you find yours. Oh, okay. Well, you're doing it. Yeah, I've noticed you've changed, John. I've noticed you've changed, Susan. That's fantastic. Let's do it.
That's great, because I think that is really the kiss of death, and a big waste of money when the top guy brings somebody like that in and then doesn't think that he's part of the mix of what's going on inside of his own culture.
You're absolutely right, and this is the challenge with cultures is people I'll go in and I'll say, okay, well, tell me about your culture, and they'll hand me a brochure, and I'm like, what's this? And they go, it's my culture. No, it's not. It's a brochure. No, but you know what I mean. It's like outlines of culture. No, it doesn't. And they go, well, yeah, it does. And I go, okay. So if I randomly pick something out of this, anything, you can tell me that everybody's living by that. Oh yeah. Okay. So I pick something out, and this is not so contemporary now, but it used to be, which is, everybody has to be at work by 8 a.m. right? And nobody can leave by 5. We know things have changed in that world now, and I say, okay, so if no one's around as the boss, does everybody show up and is in work by 8? And they go, well, probably not. Then it's not your culture. Right. And they go, what do you mean? You see, your culture is culture is very simple. If you want to understand what culture is, it's called permission. That's what culture is. It's permission. So it's permission given when no one's looking. So here's the thing. If people are showing up randomly whenever they want, that's actually the culture. If you're no stealing, but you allow people to steal the pens, that's the culture. Stealing is okay. It doesn't matter. It's about the permission. So we have to really step into saying, hold on, what is our real culture? Is the culture built on these maxims that is foundationally held inside of this dragonfire? Because now we know, okay, this is the actual culture.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So where can we find you? You have a podcast if people want more of you. And my understanding is that you interview really top leaders in it. So where can we find more of you?
You can find more of me at my name, which is Dov Baron. So dovbaron.com. That's where you'll find everything there. There's access to both of my podcasts. So I have 2 podcasts. One is the Leadership and Loyalty podcast, which is the one you were just talking about, Juliet, in which I've interviewed everybody from political leaders like Carly Fiorina, who ran up against Trump in 2016, to Guy Kawasaki, to John Oates from Hall & Oates. And people say, why would you have John Oates on a leadership show? Well, let's take a look at that for a minute. What is one of the industries you can think of that is the most disrupted industry you can think of? Music. Mm-hmm. Incredibly disrupted. And John Oates has been partners with Daryl Hall for 50 years, 50. They've been business partners for 50 years. Do you know a business partnership that's lasted that long and done that well, that those guys are still out on the road? They were out this year on a world tour, end of last year, beginning of this year. Mm-hmm. So, business partnership in a disruptive industry, perfect guess. So we've interviewed all those people. There's 700 interviews or something on there. It's fabulous. And then there's the Curiosity Bites podcast, which is brand new. It just got released this year, and where we interview astronauts, quantum physicists, advisors to the World Health Organization was the first episode, 4-part interview with an advisor to the World Health Organization about COVID-19. Quantum physicists, astronauts, holy people. I mean, it's wild and wonderful, amazing conversations that are pretty intense at times too. It's amazing. So that's on there. Also, I have my own outlet on Thrive Global, which is called The Dragon Path, where we write there. So you can find all my articles on there. I have a blog on the site. YouTube channel with over 700 videos. There's a lot of stuff.
He's everywhere. I think that's what he's trying to say. He's everywhere. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on today. Really appreciate it.
It was my absolute pleasure, Juliet. Listen, before we go, I want to say thank you to you for having me on. Thank you for allowing me to serve your audience. And I want to say to you, as you're listening or watching right now, Do you understand what it takes to do this? You probably don't. I do. Juliet goes out, finds great guests for you, has them bring their knowledge, their wisdom for you so that you have value. There's no charge to you. You get this. And she needs to know that it adds value to you. So you need to write to her. You need to add comments in YouTube. You need to go on to wherever you tune in to this podcast and subscribe, review, and share it with your friends. And write to Juliet, write to me. My email, I'll give you my personal email. I know I'm insane. dov@dovbaron.com. Write to us. Tell us what you got out of this and what you're going to do with it, because information is worth the hole in the donut. Transformation comes from application. So what are you going to do with this? Write to us. Tell us what you're going to do with it. Tell us what you got out of it. Share the show with everybody you know. And if I can be of a service to you in any way, write to me. I'll answer you. I do answer my emails. I'm here to serve. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for giving us your time, your energy, your effort, and your commitment.